Hello and welcome back to Master of Dan. This is episode 3 of How to Analyze Training Data. So I'm going to jump right into it. I've got the screen just a little bit bigger than it was last time, so hopefully it's a lot easier to read. Got my standard imports. We're going to import the employees file we made last time. I did a little bit of off-screen work to make sure that it was a little bit more readable. So we've got the employee ID in the leftmost column over here, and then last name, first name, and sex of the employee. For the purposes of realism, I've made up a fake company called Horizon that does 5G cell service for the Portland area in this case, because that's where I'm from. So I've made up some fake course names that have loosely to do with cell phone service. So course names: chemtrails and tinfoil hats, how to turn conspiracy theories into selling points, is 5G a myth, and other questions you might hear, how to sell phone warranties, smartphones and dumb people, know your audience, what does this button do, emotional intelligence for managers, emotional intelligence for employees. So I'm going to take these courses, as you can see here, they're put in a list, and I'm going to put them into a data frame and give the column name the course name, or the name course name. Okay, so we see here, we've got our nice little data frame. It says course name. Now, for each course name, typically there's a unique ID that goes with the course name that's separate from any auto-generated ID. So we're going to create that real quick. Also, I want to point out that at points in this video, I'm going to pause it and then skip ahead a little bit for some of the more mundane aspects that you can figure out, like putting a range of course name and course ID numbers in here. Okay, so I've added a course ID and a course length in hours, if you will, to the course list. So from a database perspective, this would most likely be its own table with its own set of attributes, especially if these had additional web-based training modules. But we won't go quite that deep in this series, at least not yet. And so for now, we'll just keep this as our base course list. Now what we need to do is generate a course portfolio, if you will, that has every employee's training history with all these courses. Okay, I've done a little off-camera work here. So what I've done is I've randomly generated from the course list, or list of course IDs, for each employee ID, a list of courses they've taken. And now we're going to assign dates to each of these courses. I'm bringing it back. I have built a little random date generator. So what it does is it takes a starting year and an ending year as inputs. As you can see up here, your start, your end, and then gets a random year from that date range. I provided a list of constants for the end of the days for every month of the year. Right here, I convert the year to a string for later. And then here, I take a random month from 1 through 12. And the random day, what this does is goes from 1 and then references the constant date range and just subtracts 1 from the index of, or subtracts 1 from the random month so that it actually equals the index of this up here. So it gives you the correct end date. And then I concatenate everything together and convert the integers here to strings with some little dashes in between in the standard ISO date format. As you can see right here, on number 16, we'll make that the top one, that the date works, and then you can randomly generate any date as we go. So what we're going to do now is take this date generator function and iterate through our previous list right here. For every single one of these courses, we're going to attach a date to them. So we'll actually end up stripping out these courses, I guess, for each one of these things. Okay, I had to backtrack a little bit on this thing because I realized I messed up on my date generator here, so I've made it so it adds an extra 0 in front of the day or the month if it's only 1 digit to keep in with the ISO format. So going down here, The next thing I've done is I've iterated through all of the course history in DF course history here, and I have a list up here for catching everything, and then a sub list for catching all the courses based off the variable length of the course history per person. And then what I do at the end of the loop here is loop back in the EID, the employee ID of the person, plus a list of all the course dates, change it to data frame, and now we have two data frames. So we have this one, and then we have this one right here. So now we can actually go through and iterate through and make a single data frame that has all of that information together. So now that we have all of our dates, I've created a blank data frame, so I call it df blank. We've got PD data frame, just put none in there, and it just adds a unspecified value to the data frame. And then what I've done is I've looped through both the DF course history and DF dates, put them together into a data frame, transposed it, because what it does is it makes all of the, it makes it on the wrong axis. So I flipped it around, renamed the columns, added the employee ID of the respective employee, and then concatenated df blank to itself with dft here on the row axis, or the 0 axis. So now you can see df blank, we look at the header here, the first 9 rows are from this employee ID, and then the next few rows are all same employee ID, different course number, different dates, etc. So this is our course history now. And if we want to check how big it is, let's go over here, do length of df blank. Sorry, put that back up on the screen. And it's 11,540. So now we have our course history. So I'm going to do two things now. I'm going to output our course name list here, df course name, to its own file down here. We're going to use, the mouse is acting up. We're going to use pandas to CSV mode. We're going to call it course definitions CSV. And apologies for that long minute of silence. I thought I was paused, and apparently I was not. So we're just going to output df blank really quick, also to CSV. I will pause it during this. And the file looks good. So with that, let's wrap up this week's session. And in the next session, we will start our actual analysis. So have a great day. And again, thanks for watching. This has been Master of Nan.